Nagdadalawang isip ka pa ba kung dapat kang mag-invest ngayon sa Bitcoin? Sa nakalipas na taon, tumaas na higit sa 100% ang halaga ng Bitcoin at ngayon ay nagdi-decouple na ang Bitcoin sa traditional finance. Ang institutional FOMO ay hindi pa kailanman naging ganito kalakas, especially na nabanggit ni Larry Fink ng BlackRock na ang Bitcoin ay bilang isang flight to quality, pati na rin ng mga kumpanya tulad ng Honda at Ferrari na tumatanggap na ng Bitcoin as a form of payment, at pati na rin ng mga kandidato sa pagkapangulo sa Estados Unidos at maging sa ibang bansa ay gumagamit nito bilang bahagi ng kanilang kampanya. With the having less than 180 days away at ang posibilidad ng spot Bitcoin ETF approval, ito na ba ang pinakamagandang panahon upang mag-invest sa Bitcoin? So, nakatanggap tayo ng mga magagandang balita para sa Bitcoin nitong nakarang linggo at fresh pa rin ang pag-akyat nito sa halagang 35k na at the moment everybody is excited about. But nobody was excited nung nag-bottom yung BTC to 15k noong November 2022, which would have been the perfect opportunity na mag-DCA. But that's okay, I missed that too, as just like everybody else I was experiencing a lot of fear and did not re-enter until nung nag 20k to 23k na ang BTC. So on the latest video na na-mention natin na ang posibleng rason nito ay big investors o institutional investors ang cost ng paglipad ng Bitcoin to 34 or 35k, at JP Morgan seems to agree as they mention na ang recent outperformance daw ng Bitcoin ay fueled by institutional demand. And talking about institutions, may mga companies na kagaya ng Honda at Ferrari na tumatanggap na daw sila ng Bitcoin as a form of payment. Could this mean na posible na rin i-accept ni Elon Musk ulit ang Bitcoin as a form of payment, as alam natin na sinabi niya na hindi daw niya i-accept ang Bitcoin as a form of payment unless around 50% renewable resource daw ang ginagamit nito sa pag-mining. At nabasa ko dito sa lumang article at binerify ko rin kay ChatGPT na
ChatGPT, dude.
Ayon sa study, 70 to 75% daw renewable resource ang ginagamit sa pagmina ng Bitcoin. So, what are you waiting for, Elon Musk? Nakita rin natin ang mga kandidato sa pagkapangulo na gumagamit ng Bitcoin bilang bahagi ng kanilang kampanya nitong nakarang taon tulad ni na Ron DeSantis.
In Florida, we've seen them talking about it, so I actually signed legislation where we don't recognize central bank digital currency. Now, Congress could override us on that, but the Fed unilaterally, I don't think they could override us on that, so we've protected Floridians. But as president, on day one, CBDC goes into the trash can. We're not going to allow it. And we are going to let Americans invest in things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. No one's forcing you to do it. If you want to do it, you can do it. Biden's war on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will come to an end when I become president.
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Free money is as important to freedom as free expression. A government that has the power to starve its citizens when they're disobedient will inevitably turn our entire country into serfs. They monitor our every movement, our communications, our every transaction. And the technologies they use to monitor us can also be used to control us. If it has a good enough excuse, the government can now take away all of our freedoms. And guess what? There is always a good excuse. Bitcoin is a bulwark against precisely this kind of government and corporate expansion and intrusion. It has been used to bypass oppressive government controls over the monetary systems, as in Canada and Myanmar. As president, I will make sure that your right to hold and use Bitcoin is inviolable.
At ang aming mayor dito sa Miami na si Francis Suarez na running for president this coming election sa US.
I believe that our country needs to lean into this multi-generational disruptive moment. Crypto is a big part of it. Blockchain is a big part of it. And making sure that we don't have the kind of intervention into our monetary system that we're seeing, right, where fiscal spending is out of control. People are just printing money, which creates inflation. And then you've got the Fed trying to reverse that by increasing interest rates. So in Joe Biden's America, not only is it an America that's antagonistic to crypto, but it's an America where the poor get poorer because their purchasing power goes down and interest rates go up.
Mayroon din isa pang candidate na running for president pero outside of the US, itong si Javier Milei sa Argentina, kung saan alam natin na kailangan ng bansa ng malalim na pagbabago sa kanilang ekonomiya.
Bitcoin, se habla de Bitcoin en los medios, se habla de Bitcoin, pero ya hay gente que lo pondera como una especie de alternativa monetaria. ¿Vos creés que es posible en Argentina esa discusión?
Lo primero que hay que comprender es que el Banco Central es una estafa. Es un mecanismo por el cual los políticos estafan a las personas de bien con el impuesto inflacionario. El Bitcoin lo que está representando es la vuelta del dinero a su creador originario, que es el sector privado. El dinero es una invención del sector privado. El Bitcoin no, digamos, tiene un algoritmo y un día va a llegar a una determinada cantidad y no hay más. ¿Y qué es lo interesante? Que es la vuelta al sector privado. El problema es que los estados no te van a querer ceder que del curso forzoso, porque del curso forzoso te estafan con el impuesto inflacionario. Entonces el Bitcoin es la reacción natural frente a la estafa que son los bancos centrales y que el dinero vuelva a ser privado. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Cuando vos tenés economías con alta inflación y el problema de la estafa es más claro, entonces hasta podés discutir, como digamos planteo yo, directamente eliminar el Banco Central.
Nakaranas ang Argentina ng 124% inflation. Just imagine kung isa kang respected na doktor and you also make a lot of money and then poof, dahil lang sa greed and neglect ng government, useless na yung pera mo at ang diploma mo. At dahil sa mga inflation rate sa mga bansa na na-mention dito sa tweet na ito, all-time high ang Bitcoin sa kanila. And remember, Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million coins. You can never inflate this form of currency. But wait, may isa pa. Meron rin tayong isang senador sa Mexico na si Indira Campis na nag-a-advocate para sa adopsyon ng Bitcoin sa kanilang bansa, katulad na nangyari sa El Salvador noong 2021. So, is it the perfect time para mag-invest sa Bitcoin? Actually, para sa akin, it has always been the perfect time na mag-invest sa Bitcoin, especially recently nung nag-bottom to 15K ang BTC noong November 2022. We would have made up to 100% plus. Alam ko na maraming Pilipino na mahilig sa altcoins or play-to-earn crypto games, pero para sa akin, Bitcoin ang forerunner ng mga altcoins na ito. At according sa conclusion sa isang research ng Fidelity Investment saying that as a monetary good, Bitcoin is unique. Therefore, not only do we believe that investors should consider Bitcoin first to understand digital assets, but that Bitcoin should be considered first and separate from all other digital assets that have followed it. To put it simply, mas mainam unahin pag-aralan ang Bitcoin bago ang iba pang digital assets. So, at this point of the video, pag-aralan natin ang simpleng on-chain metric na pwedeng makatulong sa atin sa pag-enter and exit sa Bitcoin. Or possibly not exit and hodl Bitcoin forever if you are a believer, as I will show you it is better to be in than out or be a hodler than a trader of Bitcoin. So we are looking at the long-term holder supply on-chain metric. Mapapansin natin na for every bottom ng Bitcoin kagaya ng November 2022 bottom na 15K, nagre-resulta sa pag-akyat ng long-term holder supply na nagbabahagi na nag-a-accumulate ang mga long-term holders, at ito rin ang tamang oras na pag-enter. We can see this clearly pag ginamit natin ang pi cycle bottom or pag pinair natin sa isang chart ang realized price ng Bitcoin, which is the average cost basis ng lahat ng coins in circulation, or basically yung average price na nabili lahat ng coins in circulation. So pag nag-cross below daw ang price ng Bitcoin below the realized price, nagsisignify ito na nag-bottom na ang Bitcoin as shown here, at dito maobserbahan natin na ang long-term holder metric nag-i-spike yung supply held nila. Another observation is that after the halving, patuloy ang pag-akyat ng supply ng mga long-term holders in an uptrend as hinuhold lang nila ang supply nila at hindi nila ito ginagalaw up until the point nag-flip at nag-start na rin mag-accumulate ang mga short-term holders, at actually aabot sa point na ang short-term holders naman ang dominant, leading to a point na nag-bottom na ang long-term holders and at the inverse, nag-peak na ang short-term holders. This will be the time na mapapansin natin na nag-peak ang BTC price, as hindi natin matatras sa mga short-term holders ang peak price dahil hindi nila ito masusustain, dahil mas dominant pa rin even at the bottom ang long-term holders. And then after that begins the bear market at uulit ang ating cycle. So I mentioned na mas maganda maging investor kaysa maging trader sa Bitcoin. Actually, it's up to you. But the way I see it, ang long-term holder supply patuloy tumataas every cycle, every year, and even every bottom ng long-term supply is always in an uptrend, and currently 75% of the total supply ng Bitcoin ay nasa kamay ng long-term holders, and we are not accounting for the lost Bitcoin supply, which is apparently ang total actual supply ng Bitcoin is not 19.5 million BTC at the current moment, pero is within 14 to 15 million. So imagine Bitcoin has a fixed supply and it's running out. Exchanges as well have only 11% of the total supply. So imagine only 11% ang tinitrade ng tao sa exchanges. So think about that. This week I actually did not accumulate. Wala akong na-DCA ngayon as I feel like sobrang taas ng price ng Bitcoin. So I'm just waiting for a retracement ng Bitcoin na ma-establish yung 31K as a support, and maybe mag-start ako mag-DCA from 31K. And with regards naman sa aking SPY investment, the SPY is actually below the 10 or 20 week moving average, which is the perfect time para sa akin mag-accumulate, pero hindi pa ako nag-accumulate. So meron akong $200 I believe na park sa aking Robinhood na pwede kong i-invest sa SPY, at meron rin akong $500 na pwede kong i-invest or i-DCA sa aking Bitcoin investment. So if you've reached this point of the video, I just want to say thank you for giving your time to me. I hope I made your time productive with all the stuff that we learned today. And at the same time, I just want to say, if you like the video, please like, share, subscribe, and comment down below if you DCA or trader ka ng Bitcoin. So let me know. Thank you once again.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I gotta